Hi, it's Roger here with episode 10 of Entrepreneur TV. And this week I am in Singapore, Boat Quay, where we are going to talk about the 10th of the principles on 10 times in your business. This one is all about standards. Here we can see behind me, Boat Quay. This is one of my first memories of Singapore. The very first time I ever came here was my dad bringing me here, wow, way back in the 1980s, I think it is. And at that point, I had no idea I was going to come back here after going to university and starting my first business. And I actually shared in a more recent video a story about how I actually got started with my first business here. But what I didn't tell you is how I had to set my standards first in order to do it. So if you're at that point right now in your business or in your startup where you're trying to figure out how to just get the cash flowing, it doesn't start by going out creating new products. It doesn't even start by going out there trying to even start a business, to be honest. It starts by understanding the connection between your passions, which we talked about in the last video, and the passions of those you're going to serve. What you love connected to the love of those who are going to be your customers allows you to create that cash flow. And that's where standards become so important. So I'm going to tell you a story in this video, in fact, a few stories, and they're all going to be linked to this as well. And let me just talk about what I mean by standards before we get into it. A lot of us have goals, and the challenge of having a goal is a goal can be something really super high, which then you can get demotivated by when you don't achieve the goal. When you look at all of these shop houses here, the maximum you can get to is maybe, you know, third, fourth floor, and that's what happens when you have small goals. It's kind of like, it's what you're going to reach for. So goals are what you reach for. You go for bigger goals, like these big buildings over here. You can have 60th floor, totally different view, and it's about actually setting yourself a higher goal. But the challenge is, if you're starting at ground zero, it can be demotivating to think you've got to climb 60 stories to actually get to your goal as well. So what's the difference of a goal, which is something you reach for, and a standard? A standard is something that you settle for. It's where your feet are as opposed to where your arms are reaching. It can feel great going for goals, but if you don't have standards that are growing, then you're always going to be on the ground floor. So you start raising your standards so you can get to the first floor, or the second floor, or the third floor, and you realize that those who reach higher goals do it simply because they've got high standards. So if you say, a standard is what I settle for, and I settle for watching TV every night, or I settle for saying I can't get it done, or I settle for procrastinating. These are all standards which you'd expect at the bottom floor. If you, on the other hand, say I'm no longer going to settle for just watching TV every night, I'm actually going to start investing my time in building a business or connecting to the right people. Or I'm no longer going to settle for being the person who thinks they can't do it. I'm going to now become the person where I'm going to settle for a higher standard, where I'm going to say, not only can I do it, I'm going to get around other people who believe I can do it as well. As you start lifting up your standards, what that does is it actually starts making you change the way you spend your time. And you start investing it at a much, much higher level as well. So in my experience, those who get to their success don't get there by reaching for high goals, they get there by lifting up their standards. And that is a day-by-day practice as well. So your first standard, what should it be? It should be for you not saying, you know, I'm gonna reach for something big, but I'm gonna settle for something low. It's gonna be that I'm gonna actually lift my standard in terms of the people I'm gonna be around. And I'm also going to change my standards in terms of what earnings I'm going to generate for myself, such that I make sure that I am going positive month by month. This is what we mean when we actually talk about the spectrum levels and going from infrared and red level, where you're just earning enough money to have nothing, to going up to orange level, which is now where you have positive cash flow. And once you get positive cash flow, once you earn the right to actually be serving customers, that's when everything starts shifting, because now you build your two levels of trust: internal trust, which is confidence, your confidence goes up, and your external trust, which is credibility. Your credibility goes up as well, which means, of course, it's easier for people to then trust you that you're actually going to deliver as well. So here are a couple of stories. My first story is about me personally and my first journey here in Singapore. When I came here, I didn't start just straight away by building a business, because I came to Singapore in 1997 and realized, holy cow, I can't actually even stay here unless I get myself a work permit. I want to start a business, but what am I going to do if I need a work permit before starting the business? I had to figure out a way that I was going to do that. So first of all, I thought, okay, I need to figure out my passions. My passions were very much about technology in those days, getting involved in something in media. I said, who could be my number one customer? So remember, on the impact meter, we say your first customer gets you to level 1. And this is not someone who you're gonna have to pay you money before you figure out how you're going to help them make money is someone who you're going to help to make money, and as a result of that, they end up paying you money. So I said, right, I got to go find a company that can actually do some of my skill sets. Where would I find that company? It must be a technology company. I started looking, I went to a library because didn't have much internet in those days. I started looking for companies that might be interested in hiring me or at least giving me a work permit if I could show them some of my skills in terms of my sales and marketing or the things I learned in the UK at my first business. And so I started knocking on doors, I started phoning people up, got nowhere. I found there was a top 10 list of the top technology companies that were being supported by the government. So I had my hit list, my hot list, but when I went looking for the right contacts, I just couldn't get through them within all the contacts that I was finding. So what I did at the end was thought, well, there must be someone who I can help. Maybe my first customer is somebody that's helping these companies. And it turned out there was something called NCB, which is National Computer Board at the time, that was supporting these 10 companies. In fact, they'd come up the list of the top 10 most promising technology companies. So I called them up and I said, who's in charge of making sure that these companies are successful? I got through to a guy who, that was his job, to actually make sure he was promoting the top companies. And I said, hey, I've come from the UK. I'd love to meet up with these top companies. I think I could be of value to them as well. He asked me a few questions. He said, okay, I'll put you in contact with these guys as well. In fact, I said, could you actually organize for me to have lunch with some of the CEOs? So he went and did that as well. The next week, I had these lunches set up with the CEOs. I didn't know why I was speaking to them other than the fact that the NCB had said, hey, you should meet this guy, Roger Hamilton. So here I was in my kind of like, mid-20s, now meeting with these CEOs. And when I did, I just found out a bit about their business, found out what their real problem and challenge was. And they said, hey, I could actually help you potentially, where I'm not even asking for money. I'm just looking for a spot in your office, a place where I could, because my ambition is to have my own company here in Singapore as well. So I have a spot in the office. I can provide you with training to some of your team. And in return, if you could actually help me get my work permit, I'd be really happy with that. There were two companies in particular who both said yes. One of them, Go Kim Soo, he said not just yes, but would you like a computer with that? And that's pretty much how I started here in Singapore. And that happened within about a month, because I gave myself only a month to figure this out, which is the other thing about standards, actually saying how long will you settle at one level before you're planning for the next level. So before you even know what you're going to do or how you're going to do it, you've got to say, what's the criteria by which you then make that decision to then say that now your reality is different. And I gave myself a month to do that. And so off the back of that, that's how I got started here. And then that story, and I'll leave a link below to the story of how I started my first business, I could do that now because I had bought my time. I'd made sure I had my Clark Kent time, which then allowed me to have my Superman time as well. Within about 2 months of working with Kim Soo, I had provided enough value in training up his sales team, helping up his marketing team, that he was then happy to actually pay me a retainer for some of my time as well. And then that allowed the cash flow to come in while I was actually running my business as well. So this whole idea of actually saying, I'm gonna lift my standards up. So I'm gonna go basically to a point where I'm now earning enough money. I'm gonna go to a point where I'm actually buying my time. Those came before I got to the point which is like, now I've got my own business, right? So you've got to go one step at a time. It's gonna allow you to be able to grow so that you don't end up panicking by trying to start in fourth gear and wondering why your car keeps stalling. Now here's two other examples of this, because we just ran our Genius Entrepreneur Mastermind, which we run every month. And I had two people I interviewed, which was all about how you pinpoint your passion, link it to standards, and then find your first customer, who's someone that you help put money in their pocket. One example was Jane Stevenson. She was on the call and she shared the story of how she went from basically thinking of starting her own business through to connecting up with Glenn, who runs Magnetic Storm, connecting up with Glenn where she could then actually help him to build Magnetic Storm up. And then she linked that to her passion, which was leadership, helping others through training, through building their culture. And now they are launching Magnetic Minds, which the two of them are now working on together, something neither of them knew they would be doing when Jane started working at Magnetic Storm. But she earned the right, she built her credibility, she built her confidence, and at the same time she delivered great value off the back of that, which is what allowed her to then build that confidence with Glenn to now start up an entirely new business off the back of Magnetic Storm. Second example was Jan. Here is Jan Polak, who is based in the Czech Republic. And Jan was sharing his story of how he actually got started by connecting up with us and with using talent dynamics, wealth dynamics within the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And off the back of that, now in April, he's built such a reputation within Czech Republic as someone who's a problem solver that's supporting and working together with entrepreneurs, that he, on the one hand, is now launching our Entrepreneur Fast Track, which is going to take place in Prague. So first time I've ever been in Prague, and I'll be doing a video from there. And secondly, as a result of the partnerships that he created, I'm also going to be speaking with Deepak Chopra at an event that's going to be taking place in Prague as well. And all of this is a result of him deciding, before I go out and start my own business, I want to make sure that I can be of value to others so that I can help them to build their flow. And this is the most important thing. Think about standards a little bit like playing a game. Once you know your game, like football, your game. So do you want to play in the local regional leagues? Do you want to play at the World Cup level? And then decide basically based on the level you're going to go for, who you're going to then work with, who's going to be your coach, your trainer, who's going to be the team you're going to be part of. And before you start going out there trying to read books on football or become the captain of a team, just get playing the game. Entrepreneurship is not something which you learn from books. It's something that you learn by doing. And the only way to learn by doing is to get in the game by first of all setting the standard of the level of game you want to play, and then get connected to people already playing that game before you try and figure it all out for yourself. So I hope that has been a good distinction of the difference of raising your standards as opposed to raising your goals. And then as that happens, then you can keep on, as these big buildings here are doing, keep on reaching for the stars, and I will catch up with you on the next video.